to really, really understand about relationships is being with people. And some of the times that it's hardest to be with people is when they're grieving and when they're in a process of being and losing or letting go or releasing. And I consider it one of the most sacred times when we have the opportunity to be with a loved one. Recently, I got a sign, and I got a sign that Ron and I have been friends since 2008. We've been working together in various ways since 2008, and on the back of a car, I was thinking of Ron. I was doing a prayer for Linda. We were driving, and my younger brother, Omar, had a name for me. And it was such a sweet name, and it means big sister in Sanskrit. It was, and I was thinking, concentrating, praying, feeling my wellness, sending that to Linda for healing, for whatever was the next step. And this car, as I was getting on the highway to go to my other office, said, "I love," and the nickname, Appa, O-P-A, Appa, and that's what he called me. And so, I'm in tears, I'm feeling Ron, I'm feeling Linda, I'm feeling my younger brother. My younger brother disappeared for 2 years. I don't know if I shared this with you. 2 years we didn't know where he was, and we were searching for him. And I would often hear him whisper in my ear. And I'd hear him say, "I love you, Appa. I love you, Appa." And then when I got off of work and was headed back in this part of town, the same exact car with the same exact license plate. And I do a lot of processing in the car. I actually work out my arms. I have a whole routine. I like the energy as I'm moving. I see it as a way to process through. Traffic never bothers me for this reason, is because I'm always doing work with myself, with my arms, with my prayers, with Source. I'm in this space that traffic offers me. So it was amazing to see "I love Appa" on the way home. And that's when I knew I'm Ron Holman's big sister now. It's And I'm so grateful to be here at this point and at this time. We stand on the shoulders of Linda Holman and Dr. Ron Holman. If you think of one person that's touched your life and been able to make such a difference, and quite often the people that Linda has touched and Ron have touched, they've never actually physically met. And so we're going to have Ron, for as long as he will have us, talking about building this business. There's 4 companies here. There's it's too loud.
No, there's a crack in your mic, so just.
Sorry. Hello, darlings. Shall I put on my English accent for this part as I get adjusted? Please do, it's marvelous. I do a stand-up routine from time to time. Better than my rapping, for sure. Is that better?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. So, Ron, will you tell us in your own words I know. I will turn it down, and I'll use this mic so it won't become an issue. Awesome. Put this. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So, is this better? Yay. Awesome. Ron, you serve 1 million people so far, and this company, can you tell us what your mission statement is with the company? And part of this is it's a business empowerment. So why do you do what you do?
So, years ago when I was very young, my lifestyle was quite a bit different than it was today. And as I found my way out of the 60s, I decided that I wanted to help people that were headed where I had been. And I had a lot of experience in being in very bad places, personally, legally, spiritually. And so I decided that I wanted to help people and that I wanted to leave everybody better off having met me. And so that's what I've been doing.
Yay! Yay! As you look into the room and you see all of the people here, and so many of them, I've been helped. I can see a lot of the people here have been helped by what gets you going? What is the thing that drives you day to day, moment to moment? Because you didn't know when you started this is what would result. What was it that got you? You had a dream, and the dream was to leave everyone better than you found them. You actually went to school, got the PhD, got the licensure. I love the story of how the Holman Group was formed. You went to City Hall, you found an insurance company. So with that, how do you do it moment to moment, day to day, without seeing the end result?
Well, I kept very, very busy. People that think that I'm sort of, I guess, high energy, high powered, you should have seen me 20 years ago. I was a quadruple type A personality. And you didn't even have to open your mouth and I'd answer you. And it sort of put a lot of traditional people off. I mean, I would go in, you know, if making 3 cold calls a day was the suggestion, you know, I would make 25 every single day. In fact, a number of times I'd get somebody on the phone the second time and I'd forget that I already talked to them. And I'd have to sort of bob and weave around why I was calling them back. So, you know, being as how much energy that I had, I really needed to channel it into a direction that felt productive and that was aimed at, you know, a particular goal. So I was going to school full time. Finished my bachelor's at Northridge and my master's at SC and my doctorate at a professional school, and I was building my company. So, you know, I mean, I was easily doing 18-hour days. And, you know, when you really plug into love, it's not work at all. It's just not work. You know, and it's rejuvenating. So, you know, I would cold call the people that I wanted to do business with, and these were the benefit managers and vice presidents of benefits and vice presidents of HR in major corporations. You know, today we contract with about 500 corporations, and we are the mental health vendor for those companies, like, you know, the people that deliver your gas into your home in LA, Orange County, Ventura County, the gas company. all employees and eligible family members of the gas company, if they want to use their company health plan for mental health or substance abuse, they call here throughout the entire system. So I cold called the gas company in 1981. I was training a guy, and we got the business journal out of the library. We didn't have money to buy one. And we were going down. I said, no, don't call the small companies. Call the big ones. Here's one with 10,000 employees. Here's the benefits guy. And he looks at me like, what are you talking about? I said, all right, here, do it like this. So I picked up the phone, called him, set up an appointment, went in, and sold the account. And we still have the gas company as a client. So I have always been extremely grateful to the gas company because it was my first really big account. And so in raising the rates over the course of time, you know, I was very, very conservative. And I told them over and over that, you know, I really appreciated them as a client. And so, you know, normally this is what would happen, but, you know, you guys are different, so here's what's going to happen. And, you know, they use us for all sorts of work-related difficulties. Also, about 3 years ago, there was a very tragic double murder. An employee got fired, and this is so odd. A year and a half later, he comes back and kills one worker and shoots his supervisor in the back of the head as he was getting in his car at 5 o'clock in the morning. So they call us almost immediately. The customer service rep, who's worked for me for 28 years, calls me and says, somebody has to be there in an hour in Pasadena. And pause, and of course within that pause was, you need to do it. So I got in my car and I went out there, and they hadn't got the guy yet. So I'm getting out of the car, and you know, I mean, quite honestly, I'm looking up at the top of roof buildings to see if somebody's up there with a gun. So I go in, I sit in a room with 3 vice presidents. One was in charge of the police, one's in charge of the media, and the other's in charge of family. And they were white. There was no blood in their faces. They were just didn't know what to do. So, you know, I got them talking and asked them, well, you know, well, what is this and how would you do that and so on and so forth, and just kind of got them talking and just kind of sat back, and they thought I did a wonderful job. It just seemed like real common sense to me, you know, and I've always been really good in the deepest of crisis and trauma. And so, what was the question?
Perfect. That's so perfect. You love what you do. You love what you do, and you spent 18 hours a day, and you played big. You went beyond other people's comfort zone, your own comfort zone, and extended out your reach to be able to use and maximize your time. Basically, you could call a company with 1,000 people or 10,000 people. You reached out and you did research in those. For people starting out, meaning they have a dream. And today we're talking about branding and empowering that dream. What did you do around branding and empowering?
Okay, first time I walked into a company, I had a white linen suit on and I don't know what kind of tie. And I looked around at the way the other men and executives were dressed, and it wasn't right. I didn't fit in. So I left. I went down to, I don't know, Nordstrom's Rack or something, and bought a dark suit and a tie and put on the same uniform everybody else put on, and came back in. So depending on who you're talking to, if you want to make them uncomfortable, show up extremely different than they are. if you want to come in and smooth the way, I mean, I picked out this tie today because in most business settings, the top executives do what? They play golf. When I walk into somebody's office, I look around. What do they have on the walls? A lot of them have pictures of their family, but somewhere it'll tell you what they're interested in. Be observant. Find common ground. I worked for a guy once at Rockwell. In the early days, I saw 50 people a week in 3 different offices. When I started selling programs, people called up for services, I would see them. And I saw as many people as I could until I had enough money coming in I could start hiring people. So I used to work for this guy at Rockwell who, I mean, bless his heart, he was a bigot. He told jokes today that would get you fired. And, he was a redneck. And, he was a racist. And he was the guy that I work for, right? So I'm sitting there going, what in the hell is the common ground here? And I said, wow, this guy's a snappy dresser. And so I decided to focus on something that I could view as positive about him. And then I looked up jokes that I could tell, and he told his off-color jokes. I listened to it as if, within the area or the reception of him being a snappy dresser, a good thing that he did. And then I told the joke that I could tell. Took about 7 minutes, and he was extremely happy. If I hadn't figured out how to do that, he would chase me out of there so fast. Because he felt like I was recognizing him, that I was showing him deference, which I was. And this is another thing. You need to figure out how to show whoever it is that you're working with, working for, the appropriate amount of deference.
That was perfect. So you evolved yourself to reflect the value system of the people that you were with. And you yourself, staying true to who you are, found something that was relatable in each relationship that offered what you needed. You found something relating.
Yeah, and, once that common ground and trust is established, you, from an NLP standpoint, you match, pace, and lead. So it's been, at times, excruciatingly slow in being able to lead corporations from a sort of hard-line human resource, chattel attitude towards employees to, a more loving, enlightened human resource, view. So, over the course of time, I can and have been able to do that to some degree. As a licensed HMO in mental health, we have a duty to the licensing board that we have a public policy meeting every 3 months, which we bring in our clients and we teach them something and we tell them about the grievances and what those are and what the trends are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So about 3 years ago, my extremely conservative vice president of client services comes to me and says, Ron, would you do the teaching at the next public policy meeting? And I said, all right, what's the topic? She said, well, they want you to read tarot cards for them. I looked at her, I said, Jane? She says, oh yeah. She says, this is what I've asked some of them and this is what they want. So over the 36 years that I've been in business, I've seen things starting to shift. And, my goal, and, I talked to the Dalai Lama's oracle about this when I was in Dharamsala. I asked him if in my lifetime I'd be able to stand up in corporate America and talk to them that health is a balance of mind, body, and spirit, and that dis-ease is an imbalance in mind, body, and spirit. And he got a big smile on his face and he said, yes. So, this is, being patient and biding your time also. I mean, you may be really, really excited, which I have been, about what my deepest core beliefs are about how life works. And you can blow off, a very valuable client, by taking them too far outside of their belief systems too quick.
So I love that we're wrapping this around, I'm going to wrap it around something that the Stiletto Gals talked about, which was the circle of influence. You saw in the first, I'm going to call it the bigoted executive, this energy of dressing well, telling jokes. You listened very carefully to what he shared and then matched it. And then you took that and you extended your circle of influence from there, and you didn't try and shift what the norm was at the time. You matched it, and then as you grew, the industry has now grown around you to receive all of your gifts. So in other words, does that sound about right? You had a lot of gifts, a lot of different things you could have shared, but you stayed within the value system of the industry, and then the industry has shifted around you and is now asking you about those other gifts. With the Stiletto Gals, as we were seeing the image of the evolution of man, they had from the ape going to what looked like a bionic man. You start with what's already there and you grow upon that, and you stay true to who you are, and everything builds around that. So I want anyone out here to ask questions, because the how-tos, what would be the first step in establishing your business that you would give out there? What are the first steps that you took or you would recommend as each of the beautiful people here have businesses, dreams that they dream of, getting 18 hours of work. Maybe they have a day job, which you did when you were going to school. You had a day job. You did schooling at the same time. Is that correct?
As part of my college, I got a basic economic opportunity grant, and I earned $3 an hour working at Pacific Lodge Boys Home. And I did that. I went to classes, and I started my business.
So what's the first step besides getting very clear about a dream, knowing, like, even though it was a fuzzy dream, which is I want to leave everyone better than I found them, I'm going to use this, what would be something that you would advise?
So action is the magic word. Action, 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 action. Who do you want to give you money for what? Know who you want to do business with, and then start talking to them, calling them, hanging out in places where they show up. Go to the charities that they go to. I mean, I played more charitable golf tournaments than I can begin to tell you. And action. You got to take action. And I don't care if you don't think you're any good at cold calling. Do it anyways. Just do it. I don't care about somebody telling you no. All no means is not now. No never means no. I got this in like 1982. I went to a NLP marketing class that Richard Bandler taught, and I came away from there with a clear ability to reframe no. They just don't understand how they need what I have right now. So even if somebody said no, I would always slide in there that, let me follow back up with you a little later. That's okay. Like in a month or 2 or 3 or a year or 2, whatever it is. Then I just put it on my calendar, target it, and give them a call back when they said I could give them a call back. And I knew that they needed what I had to sell. I knew it. There was an avalanche of drugs and alcohol entering the workforce back in the 80s. An avalanche, and the supervisors there had no clue what to do with it. None. So I would talk to them about practical things. I'd do some research. I'd tell them that I know you know that 80% of your supervisor and manager's time is spent on 2% of your workforce. I said, do you have any clue what they could do with that time if you simply referred that 2% to me and let me deal with the problems? Because you have no clue how to deal with the kind of problems that you spend 80% of your time on. And every time you fire somebody, it costs you $100,000. Because you have to hire, you have to train. The training sometimes takes 2 or 3 years. And you've now got $100,000 invested in it. You pay me pennies on the dollar to take your worst problems and let me sort them out. And I will tell you whether this is a hopeless case or not. And we're about 93% successful in turning around the worst cases. The last thing anybody wants to give up is their job. They'll give up their families, they'll get in trouble legally, financially. So, I knew some stats about the industry that I was interested in selling to.
And so you created the trend, meaning you saw there was a need and you developed the statistics and you shared that with research out. So you took tangibles that did not exist until you put them together and shared them in a way that they got your value. This is really important, just that key concept, the trend. Knowing how a trend is created is knowing that there is a need and then being able to speak to that need with numbers, with research, with proof and evidence. And so, is there anyone that has a question out here? Oh, yes.
Dr. Holman, how have you managed to integrate your spiritual life into your business life?
So how have you integrated your spiritual life into your business life?
So 25, 30 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with stage 4 cirrhosis. And the doctor sent her home. They said she had 5 years to live. And so Linda and I talked, and we decided we'd look outside of the box, which we didn't even know what that meant. So I got out the phone book and looked for healers, which is pretty funny. And so I started going and sitting and healing and taking classes. I've taken every kind of healing class I could find, from anybody from, John of God in Brazil to China and India and so on and so forth. So I'd come back and I would deliver whatever I got or understood to Linda, and then I would also, in seeing my patients that I saw, I always like to see patients even when I, had, significant numbers of patients coming in that we referred out to our network. So I'd look at, like how would what I just experienced, how is this integrating into my spontaneous interaction with people that come in to see me? And I noticed that if I listened to what people were saying, somewhere along the line, they would open the door for spirit to come into the conversation. I had to listen, though. I had to learn to really listen. And once that happened, starting to do relaxation or meditation or, going back to church or whatever it was a very easy step. People that are in a lot of pain or a lot of suffering usually withdraw, which then compromises the immune system. So also, I noticed it with my management style. It was a lot rougher in the beginning, and I was extremely impatient. If I told you something twice and had to say it a third time, I was pissed. And you knew it. Well, you don't get very much. My wife was such a pro with, using honey in a way that, people just love to do stuff for Linda. And, this is one of the things that I've really committed to moving forward is studying the art of honey. And, so, and then, I integrated everything that I learned, and practiced it. Again, action, action, action. For many, 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 many years, I did 3, 4, 5 hours of meditation a day. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and meditate till 8, come to the office, work, meditate for an hour or two at night. And all of this really helped to, ground me and to open up the field of possibilities. So, that field of possibilities can come through in a whole variety of ways.
Beautiful. Awesome. I can't imagine what it's like to meditate for 3 to 4 hours a day. I've tried and I've hit 2.5. And I've maintained silence, but that's real dedication and commitment. And to manage and help as many people as your company does, and to know everyone and cases by name, I love that you label everything. And I think that, can you just speak to a little bit about labeling and putting, part of that is being able to follow the trail. That's, as we start out, it's so important to have labeling down. If you'll speak to that just for a minute, because I think that's one of your greatest gifts as well. Labeling, which means the following up, having a system in place that each interaction, everything is remembered, recorded, shared.
All right, so from a practical standpoint, in the early days, I would have a list of what I wanted to do, who I wanted to call, etc. And of course, the list was so long that it never really got done every day. But at the end of the day, whatever wasn't done, I'd carry it over to the next day and add stuff to it. And as I accomplished something, I'd just cross it off. And I always had a list that I was following. So keeping track of, where I want to, spend my attention. And then if I connect with somebody and they say, okay, well, blah, 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 in 2 weeks, well, I just put down 2 weeks. So I think that that's part of what you're talking about. And, I keep track of what it is that, they said and what my next step with them is. And if they're interested, then I want to know, well, how do you see this unfolding? What is the next step? We have a huge opportunity with one of the Blue Crosses in another state. And, the guy, sent us a note, and he wants a meeting in 3 weeks. Okay, so then we want to know, okay, well, who's going to be at the meeting? And then we want to, with the internet's great today, we look up everybody that's going to be at the meeting, and we try to get an idea about what their interest is, what their expertise is, what is their area of responsibility, are they going to welcome or be threatened by what we have to offer, and, how can we navigate our way around whatever, self-imposed limitations that people show up with. And so I told 2 of my staff here that, besides our Arizona staff, that I want the 2 of them to go. So, I do a lot of directing of traffic today, and I do like to label stuff. And when stuff shows up, I name it and I date it. And, then I know what it is that's there, when it arrived, and, what the next step is.
So awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Is there anything else out here that, to summarize, it's being constantly in action, one step forward, another step forward, labeling things as you go along, evolving yourself to match what the industry is doing, looking like, appearing like, and research.
Yeah, another thing that's important is that, business is sort of like, it has many aspects to it. And a whole lot of why you get business is because people like you or they don't like you. So, I bring, all of the facets of who I am and what I'm capable of doing to a business meeting. I remember before America West was sold to US Air, or they acquired US Air, we were over marketing America West Airlines, and we were meeting with the director of benefits, this fairly attractive woman. And in the meeting, she and I were just sparking on so many levels. And after the meeting, the 2 guys that were with me, they were looking at me, and they're looking at me, and they're looking at me, and I said, go ahead, say it. And like they didn't know what to say. They said, was she hitting on you, or were you hitting on, what the hell was going on in there? And I said, well, you know what? She dances like that, and I know how to dance like that, and we're going to get this business. And they said, yeah, it looks that way. And so, I'm really clear, where the line is that I will not cross with anybody. And so, business is funny. Some people want to play it one way, other people want to play it another way. This woman and her husband ended up going to Vegas with Linda and me, and she loved to gamble, and I said, okay, Linda, would you please take her into the high limit area and show her how to win money? And so Linda, who I mean, calling her a professional gambler is a little bit of an exaggeration, but, you know,
She
I mean,
won quite a few millions.
yeah, some years we had to declare 7 figures winnings on our taxes from Linda. And so she takes her in there, and I don't know, I think she won like $15,000, and I think she came home with, I don't know, $8 or $9 or $10,000. And her husband, that was tighter than a drum, he watched this going on. He ended up pulling some money out of his pocket and started playing. And he won like $1,500. He was so happy. So, you know, I mean, I had another client that, I mean, what he wanted to do was to go to the range and shoot 44 Magnums. That's what he wanted to do. So I bought a 44 Magnum, and we went to the range like once every 3 months, shot, and then went to Mimi's and had pie and coffee. So, you know, to some degree, you know, if it isn't immoral or illegal, you know, I can do just about anything with any of my business clients and figure out a way to enjoy it.
Ron, was that a skill, a perceptive, intuitive skill, or something you had to cultivate through the years? Was that natural to your own way of being, or did you need to cultivate it?
It became a sort of a, I want to say, recognized need for me to figure out how to bond with somebody so that they liked me, and to then enjoy the activity. People do business with people they like. This is the way it works. If the money's the same, if the service is the same, even if it's priced just a little bit more, or sometimes even a lot more, people do business with people they like and people they trust. I remember when we sold a program to Aerospace Corporation, the broker took us in there, and this guy was the fair-haired benefits broker who he told them what to do. This was a quasi-government agency that never wanted to make their own decisions. And he told them to put this program in, this employee assistance program. I remember walking down the hall, and this guy that was in charge turned to me, and essentially he said, "Is this going to be safe for me?" Which meant, am I going to get in trouble because of this and lose my job? That's what he was really asking. And I looked at him and I said, "Trust me." That's all I had to say to him. And he was satisfied. He trusted me. So people do business with people that they like and that they can trust. And I tell my staff all the time, tell the truth. If we screwed up, tell the truth. And also, you better have a solution to the screw up. But tell the truth. When you tell, I mean, in business, most people don't tell the truth because they're afraid. Tell the truth. And especially if you have money in the bank and goodwill with a client, it's going to be refreshing for them.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you for all that you do for all of us. Thank you for every one of us I know is connected through the net. I know that every time the Holman phone rings and there is someone on the suicide prevention line or available, that all of humanity is better for it. And you created a business model that didn't exist until you came along. And based on seeing the need and being able to demonstrate it, now 1 million people have been supported through that. 35,000 therapists in the network, 1,500 clients new a month. And
so another thought that came to mind is this, that all of our competitors, when somebody calls in for counseling, they give them 3 names. and it's up to them to call. They don't know if the person's taking new patients. They don't know if they're on vacation. They don't know if they can see them at 6 o'clock on a Thursday night. So, and when you do it like that, you get 15 to 18% loss of interest in the patient, and you don't get a claim. So it costs you less money to do it that way. When we get a call, we figure out what kind of a counselor they want. We call the therapist and have the therapist call the patient. So, you know, our system, my desire to make a difference has cost me more money, but that 18% that would go away, and there's a few factors to that, because if they go away at an earlier stage, some of them are going to show up in the hospital eventually. So not only is it, you know, saving them from suffering, but on the back end, you pay less hospital claims. But most of our competitors don't know how to think like that.
When my dad taught me to sweep the floor, he said, he taught me exactly how to do it. And he said, if you do it right the first time, it takes a lot less time to sweep. And we've got some beautiful, I know Denise will make you the last question for Dr. Ron, and I'm just going to stand because I'm in my stilettos. And I want to, go ahead with your question, Denise.
My question is, there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the room who are not at the level but would wish to be as successful as you, serving 1 million clients. You touched on it a little bit about you slowly raised your prices as the market grew. Can you talk about the worth of a person's time, for example, their own business, and how we as I'm a social entrepreneur professional can raise our prices or put the value on what we're worth instead of giving it all away for free? For those of us that love to give and love to do well for others, sometimes we do it so much that we don't choose to charge for our services in the right way. And I speak for many people when I ask.
Great question, Denise.
I'm going to try to be really polite. Because the question would be, why do you think you need to give it away and not be paid fairly? So I can tell you what I did. In the early days of my business, recognizing that I had some other than totally awesome beliefs about myself, I would look in the mirror every single day and say to myself, looking right in my eyes, Ron, I love you just the way you are, because God loves you, Ron, just the way you are. And it took me 3 years for that to be not only absolutely true, but I could do the I love you dance in front of the mirror. I love you, Ron, just the way you are, Ron, I love you, right? So, I mean, this really gets to self-image, self-confidence, having a deep, deep, deep love for the way that you show up. The parts that are still evolving, the parts that get mad sometimes, the parts that are totally loving, all of the parts. God loves us just the way we are. You know, there's been parts of my life that have, you know, failed to subside, parts that I would like to evolve into a higher way of being. And I've been praying and working on those parts for 35 years, and they still seem to be misbehaving. And I love me just the way I am. I do. And God isn't done with me yet. So I think most people sort of distract themselves from, you know, really facing who they are and, accepting those parts and continuing to, work towards, embracing all of that. And I think that that probably is the foundation on how I could, go in and walk out of major corporations with, contracts and get raises, and even in some cases get paid 400% more than the going rate. We used to have a contract with Jeffries, Wall Street company, and their average employee made, what was it? I think $500,000 a year. And that's secretary, that's everybody, mailroom, everything. They had a very high interest in service. And so we developed a system by which, their people got treated. I mean, they had the platinum card. And I priced it out, and, this is what it was. And they really didn't care what the price was. They wanted the kind of service that they wanted. And as they're describing that to me, I want to know, when I'd go in, I would ask them, well, what do you like about what you're doing now, and what don't you like about what you're getting now? And when they start describing it, I'd just, very casually say, yeah, that's included, that's a little more, that's included, that's a little more. And, how do you want this done? And how do you want that done? I can do that. That's easy. That's inexpensive. That's a little more. You just put it out. And the ability to do that, I think, comes from, deeply, deeply, deeply embracing your own value. And I continue to do that. I hope that wasn't too rude. Sure.
I would have to say for myself, too, it's something that I've struggled with my whole life. And one of my clients and friends told me, wow, I thought you came from a really poor background based on the way that you served the community. And I really, I was born in a third world country, but my mom's father was the mayor of the town, and my grandparents really in the higher ups ranked on my father's side in the army in that country, which is a high position. They all got educated. But I, for myself, had something within me that I felt needed to be cleaned or cured or healed, that there was something unpure. And when I really started working on what I wanted, and when I started giving myself small increments every day, even though I was in tears, the first time I received $1, I was in absolute tears about receiving it. And I worked on really receiving compliments, receiving from everyone the input that came through. And I really recognized for myself that in the totality of it, every time I pushed $1 away, I was pushing my own power away. And I had to have new conversations around money and around receiving. I was mad at money. My entire conversation in my head, if I wasn't wealthy, if I wasn't, my own personal story, 14, arranged marriage, sent into marriage from 14 to 19. Thank God I avoided circumcision. Thank God I avoided being glossed over with acid and not able to remarry or continue with life. But I had a real struggle because I brought shame to the family, shame to the name. I could never really openly talk about what had happened to me. To this day, I've never spoken to my parents about it. But when there was fear around power, and when I understood why I want power, And I see money as a conversation around power. I see being a beautiful woman as a conversation with power. My conversation is, I will do whatever it takes in order to allow people like me to have more choices, more skill sets, more availability. I stopped pushing away what was, and I'll get into this talk a little bit deeper in my portion, because I think it's such an important aspect to understand. You're going to do great things with every dollar that you receive. You're going to create, because you've got such a great heart. You wouldn't be in this space if you didn't have that. You wouldn't be carrying that field or that resonance. We wouldn't be blessed to stand on the shoulders of Linda Holman, Ron Holman, and the other speakers that are coming if we weren't already in the vibrational grace field. So what you see others charging that you're doing, the conversation to really have with yourself is, I'm going to do great things with this, because I know what it's been like to not have it, and I want to empower. The place that I'm coming from is so clear, pure. Anything that I want, God placed that want in me in order for me to get to a deeper understanding of myself, in order to help people like me. So to summarize that point, get really clear on why you want to charge, why you want to charge more, what it will allow you to have if you have a rate, if you're able to serve more people, if you create your brand, if you get very clear with what you're here to do, you will be able to do it so much, the why. And every time you have that conversation around money, you speak to your why. Why I want it is this, and I'm the best person to get that understanding across, to serve from this process. Money, our prices, our rates, everything is a tool to help us evolve into the next way that we can serve. That's why I'm really excited to bring on our next speaker as well. Before you go, Swaha, I just want everyone to just receive you. Yay. We are coming to honor you. What can we do to honor you in the next few days? What will honor the Holman Group? What will come tomorrow? There is a service tomorrow for Linda Holman at Mount Sinai. And there are beautiful, the next 7 days, we're sitting Shiva at Dr. Ron Holman's home. And everyone here is invited, and we'd love for you to come.
I'll put some of the brochures on the table out there that has the location of the service and my home, if for anybody that's interested.
Can we all hug you? Can we do a group hug? Can we all just come up and hug you, please? No? Okay. All right. Love you. Thank you so much. Yay. Awesome. We're going to just take water, restroom, and we're setting up a PowerPoint for our next speaker. I'm so grateful you guys are here. This is so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. No worries.